Hey guys, tonight we step softly into the vast, humid embrace of the Amazon, where sunlight filters through layers of green like stained glass, and the air smells like a fresh, endless adventure mixed with a touch of mystery and damp earth. You probably wouldn't survive this long out here, not unless you're part leaf, part mosquito, or maybe just really good at avoiding giant bugs. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is locally, because somewhere out there, someone else might be stepping into their own forest adventure, even if just in their mind. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing at the edge of a green ocean, the Amazon rainforest stretching endlessly before you. It's not a place you can just walk through like a park or stroll along a path with Instagram-ready photo ops. No, this is the kind of place where every step sinks softly into the earth, muffled by layers of leaves and moss. The air is thick, sticky like melted honey, but fresh, with a scent that hints at wet bark, decaying leaves, and a hint of flowers too shy to show themselves just yet. It's a jungle that doesn't just surround you. It wraps you up, hugs you tightly in a dense, tangled embrace. The sun is a shy visitor here. It tries to pierce the canopy with golden spears, but most of its light is caught, bent, and scattered by leaves, branches, and vines. It's like walking inside a living kaleidoscope, where every green shade blends into the next, and every shadow hides a secret. You notice the rich chorus of colors and textures, thick, twisting roots that seem to crawl over each other like slow-moving serpents, bark that's rough and patterned like the skin of some ancient reptile, and leaves the size of umbrellas, catching droplets of moisture like tiny, natural rain collectors despite all the greenery. The forest floor feels surprisingly open in places, as if nature designed little clearings just for the sake of breathing. In these pockets, sunlight pools in golden pools, and the air is a bit warmer, buzzing faintly with the sound of insects. You spot a single bright orchid blooming pink and proud, waving like a flag in the dimness. It's a tiny, rebellious splash of color in a sea of green. You'd think this orchid is just hanging out, minding its own business. But here, every plant is a player in a slow, centuries-old game of survival. Walking here is like stepping into a living time machine. The Amazon is ancient, older than the Alps, older than the Himalayas, older than even some continents themselves. Some of these trees have been standing since before the last ice age, quietly watching rivers carve the land and animals come and go. Their trunks tell stories in bark, rings, and scars. It's easy to forget that beneath your feet lies a world built slowly over millennia, layer by layer, leaf by leaf. And here's a little secret most people don't realize. The Amazon isn't just one forest. It's a collection of different ecosystems, swamps, flooded forests, dry patches, and river islands, all packed into a gigantic green puzzle that covers more than 5 million square kilometers. If it were a country, it'd be bigger than the whole of India. It's so massive that weather patterns and air currents over the forest actually affect climates thousands of miles away. Now, as you step carefully over a root, you hear a rustle nearby and catch a glimpse of something small and quick, a capuchin monkey, tail curled like a question mark, flashing its curious eyes before disappearing into the branches. You feel a tingle of connection, as if the forest is watching you as much as you are watching it. But don't get too comfortable. This jungle is not here for your sightseeing pleasure. It's a tough, sometimes ruthless place where survival is an art, and everything from a single seed to a massive jaguar plays a role in the dance of life. A historical fact for you: the Amazon River, the lifeblood weaving through this jungle, is the largest river by volume on Earth, carrying more water than the next 7 largest rivers combined. It's so mighty that it actually creates its own weather patterns, producing thick clouds and heavy rains that keep this ecosystem lush and alive. Imagine a river so powerful, it basically breathes rain into the sky. Here's a quirky detail. Some of the soil beneath your feet might look rich and dark, but it's surprisingly poor in nutrients. The jungle survives because most nutrients cycle quickly through the plants and animals above ground, not stored in the earth. However, patches of fertile black soil called terra preta are scattered around man-made. Ancient compost heaps created by early Amazonians that still support vibrant growth thousands of years later. So yes, humans have been quietly gardening this vast wilderness long before anyone with a GPS showed up. And here's a mystery that still puzzles scientists. Despite centuries of exploration, we still don't know exactly how many species call this jungle home. Some estimates suggest there might be millions of undiscovered insects, plants, and fungi lurking in the shadows. Historians and biologists alike wonder if vast networks of indigenous knowledge could unlock secrets that modern science is only beginning to understand. As you breathe in the warm, heavy air, you realize you're not just visiting the Amazon, you're stepping into a world where time moves differently, where nature's intricate connections weave a living tapestry beneath the trees. And as you take your next step, the forest seems to welcome you, inviting you deeper into its secret, whispering heart. You sink a little deeper into the forest's living room, and the first thing that greets you is a soundscape so alive it's almost a language you can't quite translate. The Amazon sounds are not just background noise, they are the heartbeat of this green giant. You tune in and begin to hear the rainforest's endless conversation. At first, it's a low hum, a kind of soft static buzzing through the air like an old radio slightly out of tune. That's the chorus of countless insects, each adding their own frequency to the mix. Cicadas call in their loud, rhythmic pulses, like nature's version of a techno beat that never quite settles. Somewhere above, you hear the high-pitched trill of a tiny bird, a sharp punctuation in the mellow. green blur of sound. A sudden splash echoes nearby, the signature slap of a caiman's tail hitting the water. The forest doesn't rest even. Here, life pulses 24/7, and yet, somehow, these sounds don't compete, but blend in a way that soothes the senses, like a carefully orchestrated symphony designed by the forest itself. Try closing your eyes for a moment, and the layers of sound become clearer. There's the rhythmic drip of water falling from leaves after an earlier rain, the faint rustling of unseen creatures brushing through undergrowth, and the distant roar of a howler monkey, reminding you that the Amazon is home to the loudest land mammal on the planet. If you were here at night, its calls might sound like the soundtrack of an epic adventure movie, or the world's most persistent FOGHORN.now. Here's something quirky. Some frogs in the Amazon have evolved to make sounds that mimic the calls of predatory birds, confusing other frogs and insects in a kind of natural prank. It's as if the forest is full of little comedians, using sound to survive or just mess with each other. It makes you wonder how many of the jungle's sounds are jokes you'll never quite get. The canopy above hums too, filled with the fluttering of butterflies and the soft brush of feathers. You hear the faint buzz of giant bees, which are not only important pollinators, but are sometimes bigger than a human thumb. The kind of insect that would have made your childhood self both terrified and fascinated. Here's a historical fact that might surprise you. Early explorers often described the Amazon's sounds as overwhelming and even deafening, so much so that it felt like stepping into a living, breathing thunderstorm made entirely of animals. One explorer wrote that it was the noise of 1,000,000 invisible drums, which is oddly poetic and maybe not that far from the truth. But despite this cacophony, there's a rhythm, something you can almost dance to if you listen closely enough. Some scientists call it the heartbeat of the forest, a pulse that rises and falls with the light and weather, the chorus swelling at dawn and dusk. When many animals are most active, historians and biologists still debate the role these sounds play in the forest's survival. Some think certain calls help coordinate complex behaviors between different species, almost like an ancient form of wireless communication. Others believe the noise is simply a byproduct of so many creatures living close together. Could the forest be sending messages we just haven't learned to understand? A lesser-known detail. You might think silence would be rare here, but the Amazon actually has moments of near quiet, often after a rainstorm or in certain patches where the canopy is especially thick. Those quiet moments feel like the forest is catching its breath, inviting you to pause and listen even more carefully. It's in these pauses you realize how alive this place really is. As you move carefully through the undergrowth, the soundscape shifts subtly beneath your feet. You crunch dry leaves, snap twigs, and suddenly a chorus of tiny insects erupts nearby, as if they've been waiting for your arrival to start their performance. You feel both like an intruder and an honored guest in this symphony. So, as you let these layered sounds wash over you, You begin to understand that the Amazon soundtrack is not random noise, but a living language, ancient and mysterious, full of secrets and stories. Maybe if you stay still long enough, you'll catch a phrase or two. You continue on, brushing aside a curtain of hanging vines that sway gently like green streamers at a never-ending jungle celebration. The path beneath your feet becomes softer, the earth springy with layers of fallen leaves and moist soil. And now, it's the trees that begin to whisper their stories to you silent but impossibly eloquent. The first one you meet is a giant, not a metaphorical giant, either an actual, towering ceiba tree, stretching upwards like it's trying to poke the sky. Its roots sprawl outward in massive buttress formations, like the rib cage of some slumbering beast buried just beneath the surface. You reach out to touch its bark, which is ridged and grooved like the spine of a weathered book. It feels dry, a little dusty, almost scaly. You half expect it to sigh with age. This ceiba tree might be 200 years old, or 500. It's hard to tell. Because these trees grow slowly and die even slower, local legends often hold them sacred. Many believe they are homes for spirits or gateways between worlds. You wouldn't be surprised if this one could talk or yawn. And while this tree might be the most dramatic one around, it's far from alone. Everywhere you look, trunks rise like pillars in a cathedral. Each tree has its own posture, its own voice, if you know how to listen. Some are thin and elegant, others thick and gnarled, draped with moss like shaggy beards. A few trees host entire gardens on their branches, orchids, bromeliads, even little frogs that live their whole lives without touching the ground. One historical fact: the Amazon hosts around 16,000 different species of trees, many of which have yet to be fully studied. That's not 16,000 trees, 16,000 types of trees. And get this, more than half the trees in the forest come from just 127 species. The rest, rare, quiet outliers, tree hipsters, forest introverts. Here's a lesser-known curiosity. Some trees, known as walking palms, appear to move over time. It's not quite true walking, you won't catch one mid-step, but their stilt-like roots shift slightly as the tree grows toward sunlight, adapting to soil changes. Imagine waking up each morning with your house a few inches to the left. You pause near a fig tree, which hums faintly with life. Figs here have a wild strategy. Some begin their lives as epiphytes, growing on another tree's branches and slowly sending roots downward. Eventually, they surround their host in a leafy embrace and then strangle it, slowly, over decades. It's like plant-based Game of Thrones. There's a hidden logic to all this. The way some trees lean toward gaps in the canopy, the way their leaves are spaced so rain can fall through, to thirsty plants below, the way vines spiral upward like green staircases, piggybacking on trunks to get closer to the sun. It's not random, it's choreography, silent. Beautiful choreography that's been going on for millions of years. And among these giants are the ancient scars, charred spots on bark, carved patterns of fungal infection, twisted branches broken by old storms. These trees wear their history like armor. Some even ooze sweet-smelling sap when wounded, drawing in insects and animals that depend on that sugary reward. Others bleed toxins, a not-so-gentle way of saying, "Please don't nibble me." You duck beneath a branch shaped like an archway and step into a clearing ringed with rubber trees. These were once at the heart of a brutal economic boom, yes. The infamous rubber trade in the 19th century. Vast regions of the Amazon were exploited for the latex sap that flows in thin white veins. Beneath the bark, it fueled empires, it built fortunes, and it came at a terrible cost: enslavement, suffering, and the near destruction of some indigenous communities. Historians still argue about just how much ecological and cultural damage that era caused, and how far its echoes reach today. But the forest remembers. Some rubber trees still bear the deep scars from centuries-old cuts. Their bark, once slashed in tidy patterns, has healed in bulges and ridges, like overgrown tattoos from a violent youth. And yet, amidst all this survival and competition, the trees still breathe. Literally, they release vast amounts of oxygen and moisture into the air, contributing to weather systems that reach across continents. The forest creates its own clouds plumes of vapor rising into the sky, like invisible messages written in steam. You take another step and a breeze stirs the canopy. Leaves rustle. A single yellow petal floats down in slow spirals. Somewhere, in the distance, a branch creaks like a door opening. You half expect a tree to lean down and whisper, "Took you long enough." This place is older than your cities, older than your language. These trees have seen things. They've stood through storms and seasons, outliving empires and even watching ice ages roll in like slow-motion tsunamis. And yet, they never moved. Not really. Just grew, slowly, steadily, quietly, rooted and stubborn. The kind of personality that would definitely prefer books over small talk. As you lean back against one of these ancient trunks, feeling its texture against your spine, you realize that this is what patience looks like, what endurance sounds like. If the jungle has a memory, it lives in its trees. You wake up kind of, not because you meant to sleep, but because the jungle around you has shifted ever so slightly, like someone changed the radio station. While you were dozing off with your eyes open, the trees are still here, of course, patient, tall, looming in that weave, seen some things way. But now, it's what's happening at your feet that steals your attention. You crouch low, letting your fingers hover just above the damp, dark earth. The leaf litter here is deep and soft, like a sponge soaked in time, and just beneath its surface beneath, the fallen leaves, the slivers of bark, the sweet rot of everything that's ever died in this forest. There's movement. You squint. Was that a shadow? A flicker? Then you see them, the architects of the forest floor. Not builders in hard hats or orange vests, but tiny, determined workers' leaf cutter ants, marching in lines so precise they'd make any military general weep with envy. Each ant carries a piece of green leaf twice its own size, held upright, like a little sail. It's oddly adorable. If it weren't for the sheer number of them, you might mistake it for a parade or a microscale remake of Lord of the Rings, but with more mandibles. And here's the wild part. These ants aren't taking those leaves home to eat. No, no, that would be far too simple. Instead, they use the leaves to farm. That's right. They chew up the bits into mulch, inoculate it with fungal spores, and grow fungus gardens inside their underground nests. The fungus is what they eat, not the leaves. It's like discovering your neighbor's pet rabbit is secretly a gourmet mushroom farmer. This little farming operation has been going on for about 50 million years. That's longer than humans have even existed. One widely accepted historical fact: leafcutter ants are among the oldest and most sophisticated agriculturalists on Earth. In fact, their fungus farming systems are so advanced, they include waste, disposal chambers, nurseries, ventilation shafts, and even weeding strategies. Yes, the ants weed. You, who once let a succulent die from overwatering, are now face to face with tiny, fungus-cultivating landscapers. You inch closer, following one of their trails. It's a highway of movement dance flowing like a living river through grass and roots. Some ants patrol the line, checking for invaders. Others stop to help a struggling comrade who's dropped her leafy load. You even spot a few riding on the leaves themselves, smaller ants hitching rides to guard against parasitic flies. It's teamwork at an astonishing scale. And no one even had to send a group text. You pause, watching as the column disappears beneath a mound hidden by moss and leaf. Their nest isn't just a hole, it's a sprawling underground complex that could house millions. Literally millions. Some of these super colonies stretch for tens of meters underground, with multiple queens and generations of workers. If you could see it from below, it would look like a miniature subway system built entirely by creatures with no eyes and zero chill. And leaf cutters aren't alone down here. You spot another colony nearby, army ants. These ones don't bother with agriculture. They just swarm and hunt. A writhing, aggressive tide that eats anything too slow to get out of the way, including other insects, spiders, small frogs, even snakes. You wisely back away. Army ants do not negotiate. Here's a quirky Amazon detail for you. Some indigenous communities have long used army ants in traditional medicine, not for what they are, but for what they do. In some cases, they've even been used as natural sutures. That's right, press an ant to a wound, let it bite down, and then twist off the body. The jaws remain locked shut, holding the wound closed. It's gruesome. It's clever. It's something you hopefully never need to try on a vacation. And there's more. Bullet ants, the largest ants in the rainforest, and possibly the most painful to encounter, march somewhere nearby. You can't see them, but you feel their presence, like a warning baked into the air. Their sting, it's been described as like walking over flaming coals with a 3-inch nail driven into your heel. So, Yeah, no touching. Historians and entomologists alike are still debating just how much the presence of ants has influenced the structure of the Amazon itself. Some argue that, over millennia, ant activity helped shape the forest floor's layout, moving soil, cycling nutrients, defending certain plants, farming fungus. Others point out that certain tree species have evolved specifically to cater to ant colonies, offering shelter in exchange for protection from herbivores. It's a sort of unspoken contract. No signatures required, just pheromones. You look up from the ant parade, and for a moment, the whole forest seems to hum differently. You realize that beneath every step you take, millions of lives are unfolding, not just surviving, but building, organizing, communicating. The ground is not passive. It's not still. It's alive with purpose, motion, intelligence. One plant nearby catches your eye, an acacia with hollow thorns. You peer closer and notice ants darting in and out of tiny holes along its branches. These ants live inside the plant, defending it from intruders in exchange for food and shelter. If a caterpillar dares to snack on one of the leaves, a swarm of bodyguards arrives to chase it off. It's like a condo complex that comes with an elite security team. It's all strangely comforting, the idea that beneath this towering jungle, an entire civilization thrives invisibly, tirelessly. You begin to notice the patterns, the paths through, the leaf litter, the mounds that mark nests, the quiet highways along vines and branches. This isn't just nature. It's infrastructure. And maybe the most astonishing thing. You haven't heard a single complaint. Not one ant has stopped mid-trail to shout, "I'm overwhelmed," or "I'm taking a mental health day." There's something beautifully, almost absurdly focused about it all. And as you sit back and watch them disappear once more beneath the roots, you can't help but wonder, what if the rainforest isn't ruled by the biggest predators or loudest creatures, but by the smallest engineers working in the shadows? Your legs are a little sore now, but the air smells different, cooler, fresher. You start to hear the hush of moving water long before you see it, like someone running their fingers gently over stretched silk. You push past a curtain of bamboo, and suddenly, there it is, a river. Not a stream, not a babbling brook. This is a slow, sprawling vein of life, shimmering brown and silver in the filtered light. It looks still at first, like glass, but when you kneel to touch it, the current brushes past your fingers with soft insistence. This water has somewhere to be. The Amazon's rivers are not show-offs. They don't roar over rocks or plunge dramatically down cliffs like some alpine cascade demanding attention. No, they glide, patient, wide, deep, strong enough to carry whole trees. Silent enough that a jaguar could drink from the shore without making a sound. This one is a side channel, what locals call an igarap, which loosely translates to canoe, path. These winding tributaries lace through the forest like invisible ink lines in a massive green journal. You could walk for days and never find the same one twice. As you walk along its edge, you spot dragonflies skating across the surface, like tiny hovercraft. A turtle plops off a sun-warmed log with the grace of a toddler belly flopping into a pool. And somewhere beneath the tea-colored water, something large shifts. You freeze. It might be a manatee, or it might be a river dolphin boto, as it's known here. The Amazon's freshwater dolphins aren't the sleek grey show-offs from TV. They're pink, sometimes bubblegum pink, and oddly shaped, with long beaks and a smile that looks a little too knowing for comfort. Here's a historical fact worth savoring. The Amazon River discharges so much water that it accounts for around 20% of all the fresh water that flows into the oceans on Earth. 20%. One river, during the rainy season, it can stretch over 30 miles wide, turning parts of the jungle into temporary lakes. Boats float over treetops. Fish swim through flooded forest. It's like nature decided to play with gravity and maps all at once. Speaking of fish, there are so many. The Amazon holds the world's highest diversity of freshwater fish. Over 3,000 known species, and more are discovered every year. Some are tiny and transparent. Others are armored like tanks. One can deliver an electric shock strong enough to knock out a horse. Another, the arapaima, is longer than a grown man and breathes air, surfacing with a dramatic gulp like someone who just finished a sprint underwater. You'd think such a wealth of aquatic life would lead to predictability. But here's a quirky little surprise. Some catfish species in the Amazon climb waterfalls. Yes, climb. Using their mouths and modified fins, they inch their way up slippery rock faces like determined little vacuum cleaners on a mission. Biologists still aren't quite sure why, but the spectacle alone earns them a weird kind of respect. You hear a splash, a big one. You stand perfectly still. Nothing appears. But you feel it again, that presence. That certainty that you're not alone out here. And sure enough, a dark shape rolls just beneath the surface, then vanishes. Possibly a caiman. Possibly a large fish. Possibly the forest reminding you that it always knows where you are. The river bank here is busy. Tiny crabs scuttle sideways into muddy holes. Kingfishers hover like living darts before plunging into the water for a snack. The roots of giant trees, especially the macaca, reach into the water like gnarled fingers. Some even host bats, hanging from branches just above the current. You spot a blue morpho butterfly flitting past, its wings flashing neon like an animated sign on an otherwise quiet street. You follow the river's curve and come across something unexpected. A carved canoe, resting half in the water, half on shore. It's old, weathered, covered in lichen and moss. Maybe abandoned, maybe forgotten, maybe waiting. Its wood is split in places, but the craftsmanship is clear. Someone once shaped this vessel by hand, likely with stone tools and fire. These canoes were once the lifeblood of Amazonian communities. The only way to travel through the endless maze of trees and tributaries. Historians still debate just how vast the network of trade And travel once was along these water highways. Some believe vast civilizations used rivers like roads, connecting cities hidden under what we now call untouched jungle. And yet, evidence of these societies has only recently come to light through technologies like LiDAR, which can see through dense vegetation and reveal geometric patterns, grids, canals, even raised fields. You scoop up a handful of river water and let it drip through your fingers. It's cooler than you expected, brown from tannins and sediment, but clean, refreshing. This water has been through the lungs of the forest, filtered by millions of leaves and roots. It carries information, nutrients, and possibly stories. Another small mystery. There are species of fish in the Amazon that migrate not just along the river, but into the flooded forest. Some swim dozens, even hundreds of miles to reach breeding grounds in submerged tree groves. It's like imagining a salmon swimming through a jungle, which, yes, happens here, sort of. The longer you watch, the more you realize the river isn't. Separate from the forested is the forest, just in liquid form. It shifts and pulses, bringing nutrients, carrying seeds, shaping banks. It wears down rock and builds up silt. Its transportation, pantry, playground, and predator. You sit near the edge, toes brushing the cool water. A breeze stirs the surface, and ripples shimmer outward like soft applause. Above, the light has changed again warmer, more golden. The river reflects the sky in broken pieces, and suddenly everything feels like it's glowing from within. If you listen closely, you might even hear the sound of water running over distant roots. Or maybe it's the whisper of something ancient swimming just below, unseen but always near. One final breath, one final current curling around your ankles, and the river invites you to follow. The air begins to shift again, warmer now, heavier with moisture. Like the forest has draped a thick blanket over your shoulders. You move a little slower, your skin dewy, your clothes clinging in quiet protest. But you don't mind. Something draws you forward. A scent, maybe sharp, earthy, faintly sweet. The kind of smell that might come from crushed leaves, old wood, or secrets being cooked up in invisible laboratories. You're entering a different part of the forest now. It's less open, more tangled. Vines loop between trees like ropes in a forgotten jungle gym. Roots snarl out of the ground, reaching like knobby fingers. And in this slightly more closed-in space, the air carries not just sound and heat, but chemistry. This is the medicine cabinet of the Amazon. Everywhere you look, plants seem to buzz with hidden purpose. You pass a tree whose bark smells like garlic. Another, with leaves that give off a bitter, peppery tang. There's a small, spindly shrub nearby covered in spiked fruits that look like medieval weapons in miniature. You don't touch it. Wise choice. Then there's that vine over there, windy, woody, and utterly ordinary looking. You wouldn't give it a second glance, except for the fact that it's part of one of the most powerful hallucinogenic brews in the world. That's Banisteriopsis copy, the vine used in ayahuasca. a sacred psychedelic used for centuries by indigenous healers to access the spirit world. But here's the thing, it doesn't work alone. It has to be combined with leaves from another plant, Psychotria viridis, to activate its effects. To completely different species from different parts of the forest. And yet, traditional healers figured it out. Somehow, no trial labs, no peer-reviewed journals, just wisdom passed down through ceremony and silence. One widely accepted historical fact: nearly 25% of all modern pharmaceuticals originate from tropical rainforest plants. That's not an exaggeration. Drugs used to treat cancer, heart disease, and infections, many of them trace their active compounds back to species first studied in places just like this: the rosy periwinkle, the cinchona tree, curare vines. Some have changed the world, others we barely understand. You duck beneath a branch covered in tiny orchids, each bloom shaped like a star. In this part of the jungle, beauty often hides power. That innocuous-looking sap leaking from the tree beside you, it's used by some tribes as a natural antiseptic. That fuzzy moss coating the bar, a powerful antifungal, according to traditional forest healers. But not all of it is friendly. Some plants are deeply toxic. One bark, when brewed improperly, can cause paralysis. Another leaf releases neurotoxins when crushed. There's even a species of tree nicknamed the suicide tree because of its incredibly poisonous seeds. The forest, it seems, gives generously, but only to those who ask with respect. And respect is exactly what you feel when you come across a tiny clearing ringed with chest-high plants that shimmer faintly with yellow blossoms. There's no path here. It's quiet, sacred, even. This is likely a patch that's been tended by someone, an herbalist, a shaman, a protector of plant knowledge. You can feel their presence even if they're long gone. A kind of echo, still humming between the stems. Here's a lesser-known fact. Many indigenous groups of the Amazon carry oral encyclopedias of medicinal knowledge, often passed down through generations without ever being written down. These knowledge keepers can identify hundreds of species by sight, smell, and even taste. They know which leaves ease fever, which barks lower blood pressure, which roots quiet grief. It's science, medicine, and spirituality woven into one. You touch the edge of a broad leaf and feel its waxy coolness beneath your fingertips. It smells faintly citrusy. A moment later, a butterfly lands near your hand wings, like stained glass, impossibly delicate. And suddenly, everything in this space feels intentional, like the plants arranged themselves, like they know you're here. Here's a mystery still stirring debate. How did early Amazonians learn all this? How did they discover what needed to be boiled, what had to be fermented, what shouldn't be touched at all? Some researchers believe trial and error played a role. Others suspect that long observation, careful testing, and maybe even dreams guided their understanding. But no one knows for certain. It's one of the great, quiet miracles of history. A breeze stirs the leaves above. and a gentle rustling passes through the clearing, like a whisperage from the forest itself. You sit for a moment on a fallen log and imagine this. Whole space is a living pharmacy, one that doesn't advertise, doesn't label, doesn't rush, just exists, quietly, patiently, waiting for those who know how to listen. And while modern science continues to search the Amazon for medical breakthroughs, the truth is, we've barely scratched the surface. Less than 1% of tropical plants have been studied for their potential benefits. 1%. That means that somewhere nearby, maybe even under your feet, there could be a cure waiting for something big, for something no one's thought to ask the forest for just yet. You rise slowly, brushing your hands together, and walk onward with a new sense of reverence. The forest isn't just a place to survive. It's a place to heal. And as you step back, beneath the canopy, the scent of crushed leaves and wet bark clings gently to you, like the forest marking you with the faintest blessing. The trail narrows now, winding between thick stands of towering palms and the tangled underbrush of the deeper forest. You hear fewer animals here. Even the birds have grown quiet, as though you've stepped into a part of the Amazon where the present politely holds its breath, letting the past speak a little louder. You wouldn't notice it right away. In fact, you almost miss it entirely. But something about the land starts to shift. The trees thin slightly. The slope under your feet becomes more deliberate, like someone once shaped it. And then, just beneath a patch of moss, you spot it. A line of stones. Not random, placed, aligned. You brush aside the leaf litter and uncover a small corner of what appears to be a wall, or maybe the foundation of something much older. The stones are large, square, and oddly well-fitted, like pieces of a puzzle, solved 1,000 years ago and left waiting. You've just stumbled into one of the Amazon's quietest and most astonishing truths. This jungle, for all its wildness and unruliness, once housed cities, not metaphorical cities, not scattered camps or hunting villages, actual urban centers with streets, causeways, plazas, and intricate systems of raised roads and canals for centuries. European explorers believed the Amazon was too harsh, too resource poor, too chaotic to support anything like complex civilization. But they were wrong. And the evidence is here, just buried beneath roots, vines, and centuries of silence. One widely accepted historical fact in recent years. High-resolution LiDAR scanning has revealed entire city-like structures hidden under the forest canopy, especially in regions of Bolivia and Brazil. These scans show geometric patterns, massive earthworks in circles and squares, long, straight roads. Even fortifications designed by societies that flourished well before European contact. Historians used to scoff at tales of the mythical El Dorado, assuming it was a fevered dream cooked up by desperate conquistadors. But now, many suspect those stories were exaggerated versions of something very real, large, organized. Advanced communities with engineering, agriculture, astronomy, and complex trade routes. You kneel beside one of the stone walls, A vine has curled lovingly round it, as if the jungle itself has adopted the structure. You imagine what this place might have looked like centuries ago. Children playing in the dirt paths, farmers tending carefully constructed terraces, shamans burning sweet-smelling resins in stone temples while the night sky bloomed with stars. And here's a lesser-known detail. These societies didn't simply survive in the jungle. They shaped it. Much of what we think of as pristine rainforest may actually be the long-forgotten result of intelligent landscape design. Massive patches of terra preta, the rich, dark soils scattered throughout the basin, were man-made, carefully cultivated, using charcoal, bones, and organic waste to create fertile ground that lasts for centuries. This soil is so effective, in fact, that even modern farmers seek it out to grow crops. Which means that somewhere, right now, someone might be growing cassava in soil engineered 1,000 years ago by hands now dust. You walk a little farther and spot a low mound barely a few feet high. To your modern eyes, it's just another gentle rise in the earth. But to an archaeologist, this could be a ceremonial platform, or a burial site, or the remains of a vast meeting hall, all hidden under generations of leaf fall, storms, and roots that crept slowly over walls like time wearing a crown of moss. And here's a mystery that still teases scholars. Why did these societies vanish? Was it disease brought by early European contact, internal conflict, environmental collapse? No one knows for certain. But whatever the reason, the jungle moved in to claim the ruins with quiet efficiency. Within decades, stone was overgrown, pathways erased, and memories tucked away beneath vines and silence. You pause near a clearing where thick trees form a perfect circle, oddly symmetrical. It's the kind of shape that doesn't happen much in nature. Maybe it was once a gathering place. Maybe it still is. The truth is, some local indigenous communities never forgot. Their oral histories speak of great centers, of long journeys down river roads, of shared festivals and rival cities. Western historians are only now catching up to what elders have been saying all along. That the Amazon was never empty. It was alive with people, cultures, kingdoms, and maybe it still is. You spot a broken ceramic shard beneath your boot, a small, curved piece of pottery, just barely peeking from the soil. Its edge is painted with faint red dots, a simple pattern, but unmistakably human. You hold it in your hand for a moment. It's warm from the sun, light, fragile, a piece of a bowl, perhaps, or a cup used in ritual, or just an everyday plate for someone's dinner 1,000 years ago. You gently return it to the ground. This forest is full of ghosts, but not the haunting kind. These are ghosts who whisper through the shape of hills, the scent of cultivated groves, the bones of cities, swallowed whole by green. They don't ask for much, just that you remember they were here, that they mattered, that they still do. You take one last look at the stone wall, almost hidden again by leaves, and step quietly onward. The vines sway closed behind you like a Curtain falling after the final act of a long-forgotten play dot, and as you walk, you wonder, how many other cities sleep beneath your feet? The path begins to darken not from nightfall, but from the weight of vegetation thickening above you. Vines stretch like lazy fingers from branch to branch, and the trees grow closer together, taller, more ancient. The jungle doesn't just feel deeper here, it feels older, like the forest itself is pausing to remember something. And then it opens again, just a little, just enough for you to spot the rise of something that doesn't quite belong. A straight line dot in a place where nature coils and curls and loops and tangles. A straight line stands out like a shout in a whisper. At first you think it might be a natural ridge or a fluke. But as you walk, the line continues, unbroken, bisecting the jungle like it's been drawn by a ruler no longer visible. You've just found one of the Amazon's most peculiar secrets. The causeways, long, straight, elevated roads, some stretching for miles, built by pre-Columbian cultures, raised above the floodplains with earth, gravel, and stone. These roads don't just connect random points. They link cities, villages, ceremonial spaces, even distant farming regions. In other words, infrastructure, the jungle's own forgotten highway system. It's the kind of discovery that makes you blink. These people weren't just surviving. In the forest, they were organizing it, mapping it, mastering it. And here's a historical fact: a vast network of causeways and canals. Most notably in Bolivia's Llanos de Moyo shows evidence of complex civil engineering. Thousands of kilometers of roads and water systems once turned swampland into interconnected communities, with walkways wide enough to march entire processions of people during festivals or trade journeys, a detail that gets less attention. Many of these causeways were constructed with ritual purpose. Some align with solar patterns. Others connect points that may have held spiritual significance, which means that every step you take now may once have been part of a ceremonial path, a route walked in silence, in song, or in something sacred. You run your fingers along a section of the elevated road, feeling the compacted soil still hard. After centuries, this wasn't a trail that faded with footsteps. It was a spine of a culture built to endure, to guide, to last. And somehow, it did. And here's something to make your eyebrows lift. These causeways weren't just for walking. Some may have supported raised gardens, or even acted as fish traps during seasonal floods. Imagine that roads that doubled as food factories. Civil engineering meets clever survival in the most unexpected ways. You pause now and take in the forest around you. Insects hum softly. A red howler monkey stares at you from a nearby branch with what can only be described as quiet judgment. You can't blame him. You're walking on the ancient equivalent of a freeway, and you're definitely underdressed for the occasion. Some sections of these causeways are lined with broken pottery, or stones etched with simple patterns, faint traces of decoration, or perhaps directional signs. Was this the equivalent of jungle street art, or subtle signals guiding travelers? No one really knows. What archaeologists do know is that these roads formed networks, in some cases extending for dozens of miles. Think of it as a rainforest. Mesh, invisible from the sky, but once alive with people, trade, ideas. If we could unroll a scroll of time right now, you'd see it lit up with movement. Farmers hauling baskets, children playing along the sides, elders pausing for rest under shade trees now long gone. And yet, despite all this brilliance, despite the careful geometry and brilliant adaptation, the forest reclaimed its map. These roads disappeared not because they failed, but because they were too gentle, too natural. No concrete or asphalt to defy the roots, just compacted earth, fading slowly under centuries of green. You kick a bit of moss aside and reveal a layer of gravel, still there, a signature in the soil. This was not an accident. This was a civilization's design, and it makes you wonder if the forest hadn't swallowed them up. Would we be driving down these roads today in electric motorcycles, instead of tiptoeing like respectful guests? Historians still debate who exactly built these networks. Were they the work of a single megaculture, or the combined handiwork of many smaller groups connected by trade and kinship? Were they maintained centrally, or did each community tend their section like neighborhood gardeners of infrastructure? No one has the full answer. Not yet. But one thing's certain: these roads weren't just about getting from point A to point B. They were statements, markers of presence, evidence of belonging. And now, with the help of LiDAR and satellite imaging, we're starting to trace the ancient veins of a world that never really left, just faded. You stand still for a moment. Listen. If you close your eyes and breathe slowly enough, maybe you can hear the faint echo of footsteps that once rang across this road before the moss, before the vines, before the forest remembered to forget. You smile, just a little, because now you remember to. The path of the ancient causeway fades slowly behind you, swallowed once again by green. You turn slightly, giving one last look to its straight, purposeful line. But ahead lies something more tangled, something far older than roads and ceremony. The forest begins to shift in feeling. The ground grows softer, almost springy, and the trees tilt inward like quiet sentinels guarding something delicate. Here, things feel untouched not just by humans, but almost by time itself. A low mist creeps in under the canopy, trailing around your ankles like a curious pet. You're about to step into a place even older than any ruins or city. The Terra Preta. Beneath your feet lies one of the strangest and most debated wonders of the Amazon dark earth that seems to have no business being here. It's not just soil. It's soil that remembers. Known as Terra Preta do Indio, dark earth of the Indians. This rich, fertile soil is scattered in pockets across the Amazon. At first glance, it just looks like healthy earth. But to anyone who knows the jungles, poor, acidic soil, this stuff is practically magic. Here's the historical fact. Terra Preta is man-made. Ancient Amazonians enriched the soil using a mix of charcoal, bone, compost, and pottery shards, creating something that could regenerate itself and stay fertile for centuries. In a region where most soil loses nutrients quickly, these people created permanent fertility. Yes, long before synthetic fertilizers or modern chemistry. You stoop down and pick up a small handful. It's black, soft, and speckled with little white bits, maybe shell, maybe charcoal. It smells sweet and earthy, like old forest secrets and rain. And here's the quirky detail. Modern farmers who've stumbled across terra preta often refuse to leave it. They call it black gold. Some even swear the soil grows anything, from papaya trees to sweet corn. And oddly, they're not wrong. In some places, the dark earth continues to expand on its own, slowly spreading like a living thing. Now, you might be wondering how. How did people who didn't use metal tools or wheels invent a soil better than most modern? Fertilizers, historians, still argue about it. Was it intentional? The result of generations of composting and waste management? Or was it a happy accident? The outcome of centuries of living in one place and just being clever about garbage. Some even think there were recipes passed down orally for how to mix the perfect batch. You sit for a moment under a fig tree and imagine it. A line of women scraping ash from hearths, children tossing in fish bones, someone carefully burying pottery shards into the mix, like seeds of future abundance. And year after year, the soil got richer. Year after year, the forest grew food instead of just shelter. Terra Preta turns the usual narrative on its head. The idea that the Amazon was a wild, untouched Eden. Not quite. These people didn't just survive here, they engineered the ground. They modified the ecosystem not by stripping it bare, but by enriching it. Some scientists now believe that parts of the forest grew back denser and richer because of terra preta zones suggesting that whole patches of the Amazon may be more garden than wilderness. Think about that. You're walking not in a virgin forest, but in the ghost of a vast, planned landscape, a living memory of ancient knowledge buried right under your feet. A soft breeze stirs the leaves above, and you hear a bird give a single rising note, like a question. The jungle is always full of questions. You glance down again at the soil, dark as chocolate cake, and let the open debate swirl in your mind. Could this knowledge have been lost during the great epidemics that followed European contact? When 90% of the Amazon's population may have vanished, were there libraries of oral knowledge, never written, now gone, and yet? Some local communities today still make soil like this, almost by instinct. It's not gone entirely. It's just sleeping. You move on through the terra preta zone, noticing how the trees here seem to lean a little higher, how the undergrowth is lusher, and how the air feels just a touch cooler. You could live here, you think. It wouldn't be easy, but if you had this soil, you might have a chance just before leaving the patch. You spot a shard of pottery poking from the ground. It's curved and rough and painted with a faint red line. Maybe it was once part of a storage jar or a bowl. or something ceremonial. Now it's a time capsule, a hint of the hands that worked this place long before you ever dreamed of it. You leave it where it is. The mist seems to clear a bit now. The forest ahead grows brighter again, with narrow shafts of sunlight breaking through the trees like warm fingers reaching down. The dark earth behind you fades from view, absorbed again by the ground that holds it. You walk on, soil clinging lightly to your boots, carrying just a little of that ancient knowledge with you, even if you can't quite explain it. You follow a winding trail now, narrower than before, barely more than an impression in the underbrush, like someone once passed through here, and the forest hasn't quite forgotten it yet. Ferns brush your arms. The sunlight dapples and flickers, and the deeper you walk, the more it begins to feel like the jungle is guiding you somewhere. And then, between two colossal ceiba trees, you see it dot at first. It looks like a pile of rock slumpy, moss-covered, and scattered with creeping vines. But as you step closer, your eyes start adjusting to the pattern, and suddenly, the whole thing reconfigures itself in your mind. Steps, stone steps, leading upward into nothing. Not a temple, exactly. More like the ghost of a temple. Time has had its way with its roots coiling through cracks, birds nesting in the corners, moss blanketing every inch like a green velvet throw. Still, there's something unmistakably intentional about it. Someone, long ago, meant for this place to be climbed. This is one of the many lost ceremonial platforms found in the depths of the Amazon pre-Columbian. Ritual sites whose purpose historians can only guess. They dot the forest in unexpected places, raised above flood levels, and built with care. They weren't fortresses or homes. No one lived on top of them, and yet they were clearly central to something. You reach out and run your hand along the stone. It's cool and uneven, carved with deep wear marks that make you wonder how many feet climbed these steps before you. Were they bare feet? Painted feet? Were they dancing? Here's your historical fact. Some Amazonian societies built multi-tiered earth mounds and platforms, not unlike the ziggurats of Mesopotamia or the pyramids of Mesoamerica. These were often aligned with celestial events, sunrises on solstices, star paths, or lunar cycles. In other words, these weren't just random piles. They were cosmic calendars, massive jungle clocks you could walk on. You slowly climb the steps, feeling the grade change beneath your feet. Every step lifts you a little higher above the undergrowth, and the forest begins to fall away. Not completely. Of course, this is still the Amazon. And even the tallest structures are never far from a curious vine or a visiting bird. But up here, you get a different sense of things. You sit down at the top. The platform is maybe 40 feet wide, and though most of it is covered in plant life now, you can still spot the faint outlines of fire pits, or perhaps ceremonial basins. One corner of the platform has a carved groove that runs like a tiny channel, maybe for water or blood. No, not that. Too messy. You're trying to sleep, remember? And here's the quirky detail. Some of these platforms are lined with layers of crushed snail shells, dozens of layers deep. pressed over centuries. Archaeologists believe this may have been symbolic or perhaps used to brighten the surface, turning the dark Amazon mud into something that gleamed under moonlight. Imagine that a white, glowing plaza in the middle of a green sea. You lie back gently on the moss-covered stones and stare up through a break in the canopy. The sky is a slow swirl of clouds and shifting blue. And above that, stars that the people who built this place may have charted with stunning accuracy. They didn't need telescopes. The sky was their ceiling. Their math was written in constellations. Some of the myths tell of sky serpents and forest spirits who lived in the heavens and used the earth platforms to descend. Others say these raised sites were echo chambers for chants and songs natural, amplifiers that let voices travel through the trees. Historians still wonder, were these places used only by the elite? Or were they community centers gathering places for ceremony, music, and offering? Why do so many of them seem intentionally hidden, with no roads leading in or out? Were they designed to be found only by those who already knew the way? Imagine the scene, torches glowing, drums beating slowly like a heart. People moving in rhythmic ceremony, chanting into the green night, speaking to the sky. The stars turning slowly overhead, as they always have, waiting to be counted and interpreted. The platform has no name, none that you know, at least. But you get the feeling it doesn't need one. It's not here to be claimed or catalogued. It's here to watch, to hold memory, and perhaps to invite those who stumble upon it like you to remember something you didn't even know you forgot. A butterfly lands on your knee blue as moonlight. You don't move. It flutters its wings twice, then lifts and vanishes, a silent punctuation mark dot as you descend the stairs. You feel different, maybe taller, maybe older, like the forest has given you a tiny glimpse into a story it rarely tells. The kind of story whispered only at twilight. The jungle path takes you back into the green, and soon the platform disappears behind the trees. You could try to find it again later, but odds are you won't. It will shift again, be swallowed up, hidden for another curious traveler. Someday, but tonight you are here, and you carry that with you, tucked somewhere behind your ribs, like a secret stone still warm from the sun. The trail underfoot grows softer now, thick with leaf litter and fragrant decay. You move slowly, as if even your footsteps don't want to disturb the hush that's settled over this part of the forest. It feels older here, quieter, yes, but also denser, not just in plant life, but in stories. The air itself seems more aware of you, like the forest is watching through 1,000 leaf lenses, waiting to see what you'll notice next. You duck beneath a low-hanging branch, and just ahead, a shaft of golden light spills through the canopy, illuminating a wide, open basin carved into the forest floor. A ring of stones encircles the hollow, and at its center sits a pool of still, dark water perfectly round, like a mirror punched into the earth. This is no ordinary puddle. This is an ancient geoglyph site, one of hundreds, maybe thousands. slowly being rediscovered beneath the green veil. The symmetry is too perfect to be accidental. You recognize it now. What you're seeing, this basin, this circle, it's part of a vast, invisible signature from the past, carved into the ground, meant to be seen from the sky. Here's your historical fact. Across the western Amazon, massive geometric patterns, squares, circles, lines, rings have been discovered using satellite imagery and LiDAR, hidden beneath centuries of forest. These geoglyphs are often over 1,000 years old, built by ancient societies whose names we no longer know. They suggest a level of landscape planning, ritual architecture, and organization that once shattered the myth of a pristine wilderness. You kneel by the water's edge and stare at your reflection. Then glance around at the ring of standing stones, some half buried, others proudly upright like they never forgot their job. If you could fly right now, you'd see it. This pattern, this signature, might be part of a larger design stretched across miles of forest, like ink lines written on green parchment. And here's the quirky bit. Some of these shapes are so geometrically precise, perfect squares, aligned diagonally to celestial events that researchers believe they may have functioned like forest calendars or even territory markers. Which leads to a delightful question. Did the people who made these symbols imagine someone from above looking down on them? Historians still wonder why these geoglyphs were carved in the first place. Were they ceremonial gathering spaces, agricultural calendars, enormous open-air amphitheaters where songs and stories echoed into the trees, or something even more mysterious, a kind of sacred geometry connecting people, time, and place in ways we still don't understand? You stand and begin walking the outer rim of the circle, letting your fingers brush the stones as you go. There's something grounding about it. It's almost like you're inside a clock, the forest ticking softly around you. Every stone feels deliberate. Every footstep is part of a pattern far older than anything your calendar can explain. And just as you step past the last stone, you notice another mark. At first, it looks like damage, something scratched across a tree trunk. But no, it's deliberate. A spiral, carved deeply, weathered by time, but still clear. You step closer and trace it gently. It's not big, barely the size of your hand. But somehow, it feels connected to the circle, to the basin, to everything. A symbol etched into living wood, carrying its story forward leaf by leaf. Another open question. Could these spirals and geoglyphs have been part of a forest-wide language? One we've never fully translated? Some researchers have speculated that entire areas of the Amazon may have been mapped using symbols like this, wayfinders for those who knew how to read the land. The thought lingers as you move beyond the circle. The forest swallows the sight behind you like a secret swallowed back into a dream. But you feel different again, a little more tuned in, a little more awake. As you continue walking, you spot flashes of motion macaws wheeling high above, their bright plumage slicing across. The green like brushstrokes from a child's paint box. A squirrel monkey leaps between trees, chittering excitedly as if shouting your presence to the neighborhood. And then it hits you. Maybe these geoglyphs weren't only meant for people. Maybe they were made for the forest itself, for the birds, for the spirits, for something watching that we never even suspected. You can almost hear the laughter of the builders echoing faintly through the trees, like they knew we'd be scratching our heads centuries later. The light is shifting now, sliding toward gold. Long shadows stretch out like lazy fingers. Somewhere, in the distance, a slow, steady drumming sound rises, not music exactly, but something rhythmic. Perhaps the steady peck of a woodpecker or a tapir's hooves on dry earth. It feels ritualistic, intentional, as if the forest has its own ceremonies and is politely asking you not to be late. You quicken your pace, not out of fear, but anticipation. There's more waiting, always more. You get the feeling you could spend a lifetime here and still only scratch the surface. And for tonight, that's the whole point. You wander further, the green growing deeper, heavier. Vines hang like lazy ropes from the trees, some thick enough to climb, others as fine as thread, all swaying gently in air that barely moves. Every leaf seems to have its own design, no to the same. The air is denser here, not just with humidity, but with presence like walking through the pages of a book. That keeps rewriting itself as you read. Then you spot it, half concealed under tangled growth, and the clutch of tree roots, a wide earthen mound rises in the underbrush. It doesn't look like much at first, just another hill. But you pause. Something about the symmetry is suspicious. You step closer, brush away a layer of moss and dirt. And there it is, the sharp edge of a carved stone block. Congratulations. You've just found what might be the buried remnants of a lost Amazonian city. Now, this isn't fantasy. Over the last decade, scientists using LIDAR, a laser scanning method from aircraft, have discovered entire cities, hidden beneath the forest canopy, places complete with roads, moats, terraces, pyramidal structures, and grid-like layouts. These weren't isolated jungle tribes living in huts. These were organized, complex societies. You take a few careful steps around the mound. Your feet knock against another stone, another corner. Too perfect to be natural. It begins to come together. In your mind, this was a foundation, a platform, maybe a ceremonial center. You picture it bustling with people. The sound of pottery clinking, voices echoing, smoke curling up from hearths now long cold. Here's your historical fact. In parts of the Bolivian and Brazilian Amazon, entire pre-Columbian urban systems have been uncovered, some connected by raised causeways that stretched for miles, many built centuries before Europeans arrived. These cities supported tens of thousands of people with advanced agriculture, fish ponds, defensive structures, and even sacred zones. It's a surprising idea, isn't it? That beneath the tangled floor of the rainforest, grand plazas and temples might still lie in silence, their architects forgotten, but their designs enduring in soil and stone. Now here's something wonderfully weird. Some of these structures include large earthen pyramids, not as tall as Egyptian ones, sure, but still impressively engineered. There's even speculation that some may have been painted bright colors, like crimson red or deep yellow, using crushed berries and clay pigments. Imagine that giant colored mounds glowing between trees, like forest lighthouses dot as you poke. Around this silent mound, a few rustling sounds stir the foliage behind you. A capybara, perhaps, or maybe a curious agouti. Nothing threatening. Still, you feel like you're being watched, but not by animals. More like the city itself is aware of your footsteps. Like you've interrupted something old and dreaming. And here comes the open question. Historians still puzzle over why these cities vanished. Were they abandoned due to drought, conflict, disease? Some theories suggest the forest simply took them back, piece by piece, once the population shrank. Others believe that their people never truly left, just adapted, blending into newer, smaller communities. It's not a story of disappearance so much as transformation. You spot a carved spiral again, just like the one back at the geoglyph. Ring. This one's etched into stone. Repetition of symbols. Could this be a network? A signature? You trace it with your finger, feeling the groove worn into it by time and weather, and wonder how many more are out there. Is there a hidden Amazonian language, written in earth and stone, and symbols scattered across a continent? You step back and take it in. The mound, the forest, the silence is a strange piece, a kind of calm built from layers and layers of history. You realize now that the Amazon isn't just old, it's palimpsest. Like parchment that's been written on, scraped clean, and written on again, over and over. Human stories are tucked into its roots, like bookmarks. Here's another quirky detail. Some of the soil in these areas known as terra preta, or dark earth, was engineered by humans. It's richer, more fertile than the natural soil around it. This means they didn't just live here. They changed the earth itself, building up the land with charcoal, bone, compost, and clay to create permanent, farmable zones. That dark soil is still fertile 500 years later. You reach down and scoop a bit of that earth in your hand. It's soft and crumbly, full of life. Warmed by the sun, it smells of old rain and wood smoke. It's humbling. You're holding human intention, preserved in dirt. A rustle of wind lifts the leaves above, and the light shifts again, longer, dimmer, filtered through gold. You take one last look at the half-buried mound, now covered in shadow once more. Part of you wants to stay and excavate, to dig through the vines and tell the story beneath. But you know it's not your story to claim dots, so instead, you keep walking. The trail beckons, and behind you, the jungle slowly pulls its green curtain. Closed again. You press deeper into the forest, the air growing thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming orchids. The canopy above blocks most of the sky, but here and there, slivers of sunlight catch on the glossy leaves, turning them to shimmering pools of green and gold. Somewhere nearby, the faint, steady hum of insects pulses, like the beat of a hidden drum. As you walk, your footsteps muffled by moss and fallen leaves, you begin to notice something unusual. The plants around you seem to form patterns rows of palms aligned in straight lines, patches of vines weaving in deliberate arcs. It's as if the jungle itself is hinting at a secret language, written not in words but in living things. You stumble upon a clearing where the undergrowth has been cleared away, revealing a series of large, flat stones ranged in a rough circle. The stones are worn smooth, and some bear faint carvings, simple geometric shapes, and swirling lines. This, you realize, could have been a ceremonial plaza, a gathering place for rituals, celebrations, or councils. Here's a widely accepted historical fact. Indigenous peoples of the Amazon constructed such plazas as central hubs of their communities, spaces where social, spiritual, and political life converged. These plazas were often surrounded by communal houses or temples, forming the heart of pre-Columbian settlements. But here's a lesser-known detail. Recent studies suggest that some of these plazas were designed to interact with the natural environment in sophisticated ways. For example, certain stones may have been positioned to capture sunlight during solstices or to amplify sound during ceremonies. It's a blend of architecture and nature, science and spirituality. You imagine the plaza bustling with live people draped in colorful feathers and woven cloth, drums beating in steady rhythms, voices rising in song and chant, the air thick with the smell of smoked fish and roasted manioc, children darting between adults, elders sitting in quiet conversation. Historians still debate the extent to which these plazas were interconnected across the region. Did the people here share a unified culture, or was this a patchwork of diverse groups connected by trade and tradition? The answer remains elusive, lost in the tangled roots of time. As you linger in the clearing, a gentle breeze stirs the leaves, carrying with it the faint scent of cinnamon and vanilla. You take a deep breath, letting the tranquility settle over you. The jungle, vast and ancient, holds countless stories, some whispered, some waiting patiently to be uncovered. You step back onto the path, the stones behind you fading once more into the embrace of the forest. Ahead, the trail beckons, promising more secrets beneath the green canopy. You find yourself following a gentle incline, the air growing cooler and drier as you ascend a low ridge cloaked in dense foliage. The trees here are taller, their trunks wider and older, as if they've stood watch over centuries of secrets. The scent shifts subtly, less of damp earth and more of fragrant blossoms and resinous sap. As you reach the ridge's crest, the canopy opens just enough to reveal a breathtaking panorama. Before you stretches an immense patchwork of green, the Amazon's endless sea of trees undulating toward the horizon. Sunlight filters through in golden shafts, casting playful shadows that dance with the breeze. It's a moment suspended in time, serene yet alive. But what catches your eye is a curious pattern etched into the landscape below. A series of parallel lines and geometric shapes carved subtly into the forest floor. These are the remnants of ancient agricultural terraces, and raised fields. Evidence of a civilization that didn't just live within the jungle, but actively cultivated it. Here's a historical fact. Indigenous Amazonian peoples engineered vast networks of raised fields mounds, of earth elevated above the floodwaters to grow crops like manioc, maize, and beans. These agricultural innovations allowed them to thrive in a challenging environment, managing seasonal floods and nutrient-poor soils with remarkable ingenuity. A lesser-known detail is that these raised fields often incorporated sophisticated irrigation channels and fish ponds, creating integrated ecosystems that boosted food production while supporting biodiversity. It's a testament to a deep understanding of ecology, combining farming with habitat preservation. As you gaze over the terraces, you can almost picture farmers tending to the land, planting, harvesting, and carefully managing the delicate balance between cultivation and conservation. The air would have been alive with the sounds of work and community, interwoven with the songs of birds and insects. Historians still debate the scale and complexity of these agricultural systems. Were they the work of centralized states or networks of smaller, cooperative villages? Did these practices spread across the entire basin or remain localized innovations? The answers remain part of the jungle's enduring mysteries. You breathe deeply, letting the vastness and history of this place settle within you. The ridge's gentle breeze carries the faint rustle of leaves and distant animal calls, a lullaby of life thriving in harmony with human hands. You step back from the edge, ready to follow the trail as it winds back into the green, carrying with you a newfound appreciation for the ancient ingenuity hidden beneath the canopy. The trail descends softly now, the jungle sounds settling into a soothing, steady chorus, the distant call of toucans, the gentle rustle of leaves, the occasional drip of water falling from high branches. The air feels cooler here, carrying a subtle hint of earth and fresh growth, wrapping around you like a well-worn blanket dot as you walk. You reflect on the layers of history the forest has shared with you tonight, the buried cities, the hidden roads, the rich, dark soil, and the ceremonial places where people once gathered to mark the turning of the stars. You carry those stories with you now, tucked quietly beneath your skin, like a secret that hums softly in your veins. You pause by a gentle stream, its water clear and cool as it flows over smooth stones. Kneeling, you cup the water in your hands, letting it trickle slowly through your fingers. The sound is gentle, steady, a lullaby from the earth itself. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the coolness seep into you, washing away any lingering tension. The forest around you seems to breathe with you, its rhythm slow and deep, inviting your own breath to lengthen and soften. The leaves shimmer faintly in the fading light, their edges glowing with the last warmth of the day. Somewhere nearby, a night bird begins its soft song, a delicate melody that drifts through the trees. You take one last look up through the canopy, where the stars begin to twinkle, small pinpricks of light in the vast dark sky. They remind you of the ancient peoples who once gazed up from these very grounds, who built their homes, and their hopes beneath the same celestial tapestry. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into the night together. Let the jungle's stories lull you gently, like a soft whisper in your ear, inviting you to rest. Breathe deeply. Let your body sink into the quiet. You are safe. You are part of this vast, unfolding story, a story that stretches back through time and reaches forward into your dreams. The forest holds you now, cradled in its ancient arms. And as you drift off, you carry its calm with you, a quiet strength, a deep peace.